When it comes to the mental health conversation, we're now regularly hearing words like epidemic, crisis, pandemic, right? And all of those kind of words can lead people to feel like they need to over-engineer the ways in which they look after their teams and the people within their organization, right? And it's not that I think the words epidemic and crises and all that are wrong. Actually, I think they're right. But context is really, really important. And it's important that we don't just decide that because we spend most of our time at work, that it then becomes the people in that place of work's responsibility to make sure that all our problems are solved and we don't struggle emotionally. We have to remember that struggling emotionally is part of being a human being, right? And we don't want to polarize this conversation too far the other way, because as well as context being important, boundaries are important too, right? And a lot of organizations rely on a small amount of stress, right? And an amount of drive, an amount of being able to show up and do the things that we're supposed to do to progress the organizations that we work for. And if we over polarize to one way, what happens is we then create a space where people within organizations don't want to look at this stuff, right? Because they don't want to open a can of worms. You don't need a big, massive load of mental health training to be a good human being, right? And I think what most organizations could do a little bit more of is create a regular or semi-regular space where people get to show up, right, and explore some of the ways that we feel. People are now waking up to the understanding that if we look after the whole person, then we're going to get the best out of them, right? But once we start creating those regular spaces, we don't need to over-engineer these things, right? But talking about our emotions all day, every day, right? I don't think it's the best thing to do, because trust me, I've done it. And sometimes I need people to stop me doing it, right? Because that in and of itself isn't healthy either. So I just think it's important that as we try and even up the conversation, and look, the conversation will swing too far one way before it levels up somewhere in the middle, but we just need to make sure that we're on top of that, right? And we're understanding that people within your organization are not broken and need fixing. Actually, when most people are struggling emotionally, a bit of space to feel seen and heard can be some of the most important stuff that we do. So those spaces need to be human, right? They need to be often led by somebody externally so that people can feel comfortable within that space. And they just give people the opportunity to slow down, come away from the pressure, and explore the ways that they're feeling, to understand themselves a little bit better, to know that there's other people that are in similar situations and struggling in the same ways as them, and to remember that they're a human being. If we do that, it doesn't solve everything and stop difficult emotions. I'm afraid that's part of being a human being, right? But what it does do is it makes everybody within the organization recognize and understand that they are seen and they are heard.